With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
You've been driving for a while and you feel like you've hit a plateau and you're just not improving anymore. You've upgraded your hardware, but you're still not able to be as fast as you would like. Well, guess what? I did that too, okay? I'm as guilty as you are. And that's exactly why Racine and myself created what we call the advanced way to learn. By using the techniques that we're about to show you, we were able to win national championships, and we're now coaching real-life drivers and sim racers all across the globe. So let me tell you why you absolutely need this to improve your racing skills. On this platform, you'll go through 5 learning steps. The first one is going to be to watch video lessons so you can take in all that theory. The second step will be to answer quizzes. We've created some questions to test your knowledge. Next, you'll have to partake in challenges. Here, you'll have to prove to yourself that you can apply what you've learned. You'll go on track and you'll try to beat the instructor's lap times or sector times. Following the challenge, you'll be able to send your onboard replay so instructors and other community members can help you improve. And lastly, you can get involved in the community to meet some new teammates and learn from others. This platform is a back and forth discussion between us, the instructor, and you, the students. If you're serious about becoming the best driver out there, this is the advanced way to learn.
Hello everybody and welcome to Montreal as we get to round 6 of the PRL GT3 Fixed Series here live on Tuesday night on RaceSpotTV once again. It's myself, Ian Leary, and David Haynes along with you for this week of the championship as the walls close in at the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. Good to be alongside you again, David, for this round of the championship. It's nearly 40 GT3s fitting through a rather tight spot here at the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve here this evening.
Yeah, famously, the walls are pretty close around here. We're in the middle of the river. You've got some really big braking events that hopefully will give us some good overtaking. You've got very high curbs around a lot of these chicanes. And of course, to close out the lap, the famous Wall of Champions.
Absolutely. That's one that everyone will be looking to avoid, of course. We are off next week, don't forget, for the election in the US, so please don't come on Tuesday night expecting a broadcast. We won't be here. We'll be back the week afterwards, though, for Watkins Glen, Fuji and Sebring to round off our calendar with the triple header at the very end. So do bear that in mind next week. But very much looking forward to that final stretch, of course, as we really get to the business end now. And the reason why is because we've added our drop weeks to our point standings. And so William Fenson is now on top of the pros by just 8 points over Jeff Kofod, with it Israel Osborne and Tyler Graff all over 200 points as well in a very tight battle for the top four. At 4, Brett Furman is falling a little bit further back now. He's 5th ahead of Matt Scherf by 4 points. Eric Tehag is 7th, which is roughly about where he's been hovering all season. Andrew Trickett and Sully Sad are tied for 8th ahead of Joshua Lewis, who is 10th. In the AM driver standings, we've seen big changes in these last couple of weeks, but Luke Davies is back on top now with the drop weeks applied. 10 points is the gap between himself and Buck Hamilton, with Ryan Chandler, 19 points back. Then there's a bit more of a gap to Thomas Rep and Colin McKenzie, who are only separated by a point. Joe Pagero is outside the top 5 with David Morse, Sam Schmelzer, Carson Quinn and Robert Jeffries rounding up the top 10. In the teams championship standing, Lunatic Jelly are leading the way by 44 points. SGE are in second, just ahead of Jeff Broken Wing Racing, and then there is a bigger gap back to Bump and Run B&O Cartomania running out the top 5. SGE Yellow are just outside of that 5 now, with Lunatic Peanut Butter next. Then it's SGE Pioneer, PLR Simsport and E3 Sim Racing rounding out the team's championship. Before we go any further, let's thank the sponsors who make these broadcasts possible each and every night here on RaceSpotTV. Starting with Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest or simply worst moments from your hobby up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And finally, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. A big thanks to those sponsors who make these broadcasts possible here 5 nights a week live on RaceSpotTV. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow with Truck Series Racing from Martinsville, so make sure you join us again, same time, same place for that. And if you are, a reminder, not in North America, we are coming on an hour earlier this week because of our favourite time of the year, the clock's going back. So just bear that in mind for the remainder of the week. Just 3 minutes to go in this qualifying session then, David. I would suggest this might be one of the more important sessions of the season here at Montreal.
Yeah, well, you do get a tow down a couple of these straights. It is not easy to pass around here. Every street circuit shares that characteristic. So certainly, I think the chance of a pile-up as well is also significant, and that's what you want to be ahead of wherever that could happen in the pack.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about staying up the front here. As you say, overtaking is not as impossible as it is on some street circuits, but it is not easy. The bigger problem, though, is these tight sections. I think especially on lap 1, actually, it's not the actual stopping towards turn 1 that I get worried about. It's actually the section through 3 and 4, because there it gets exceptionally narrow. And, if there's a pile up there, or there starts to be one, we could be in real trouble and we could have a huge one.
So these are some of those high curves I'm talking about. A sports car like this can climb over them, some open wheelers less likely to. But of course, it's the curb at the very, very final chicane where the wall is right on the exit, and many a talented driver have clattered into it heavily that I think presents the most challenge. It's straight here, and how far do you want to be behind in qualifying to get a good toe but not be impeded by anyone in this traffic? Like we talk about, so many GT cars out here. Setting a clean lap is tough.
Yeah, 42. I said up to 40 actually, because when I looked 10 minutes ago, there were there's 7 more from that since then. So that's slightly odd. If you're looking, by the way, for the championship leader in Pro, William Fenson's down in 15th place, and don't forget that he's taken his drop round with a DNS a few weeks ago at round number 3 at Indianapolis, so he doesn't really have anything to fall back on here. This could be a very damaging session for him. He does improve just as I'm talking there to 11th place, but that is this is still not good news. He is a little bit behind where we're used to seeing him.
It's another place there where you go out right up towards the wall, and your apex isn't, part of the curbing or something with the wall a couple of meters back. Your apex is the wall. Here's another place. Get just a little bit of a slide on, and you're right up against the concrete. Precision absolutely required.
This is down towards turns 8 and 9 under the, is it a motorway or just a main road? Anyway, it's under some kind of road. Out on the exit at turn 9, getting close to the wall, and then the hairpin. It is literally called that in this as they go down in towards turn number 10, and powering on the way back again, trying to see whether Fenson's improving. He is, and so be a pretty big lap for William Fenson's season. Maybe don't know overplay it, but it really could be. He's only just over half a second away from the pole position as things stand. Not suggesting he's going to climb over Israel Osborne here, but it would be fantastic for him if he did. Checker flag flies, bounces over the curves at the final chicane one last time. Maybe left a bit of time on the table there, but at least he didn't get a bit of car contact with the barrier. Over the line for Fenson. It's not going to be pole, but where will it be? It's top 10 for sure. It's 8th place. That is a very well-timed lap for William Fenson, who really did need that.
And like you say, just a little bit of time left, cautious through the final chicane. That's a little bit closer. And how you want to treat it through there, carrying your speed then onto the front straight. Timing line right there.
Oh, he might have just taken it, Tyler Graff. He has. Wow. Oh, I thought he was down on his lap, but he clearly was going okay. And Tyler Graff looks like he's stolen this in here. Osborne's in pit lane. Brad Furman. Oh, David Buss is the only in the top 9 who's still out on the circuit. Meanwhile, Sam Smeltzer is showing everyone how it's done in terms of bobbling your way over the curves. Not sure that's the quickest way, but it does look impressive. Over the line he goes, and he does move up a position or 2. Brett Furman also moves up a position or 2. Sorry, David Buss the third. Brett Furman down. David Buss the third moves up to 3rd place there. So he was the only out there in the top 10 improving, and has put it to good use as well, as that is pretty do it here for this qualifying session. Right is on a lap. I don't think he is. Then that is it for our qualifying session, our first of the evening. So with all that behind us, we'll have a look at the starting grid, ready for the opening race of the night. 35 minutes ahead of us, of course, in this fixed series, and Tyler Graff will be taking it from pole position. A rather similar looking car. It's Ferrari versus McLaren, though, with Israel Osborne alongside him. David Buss III and Brett Furman are on row 2 together, ahead of Jared Keane. And then pole sitter Ross Sortino. Amazing job from him to get up into 6th. Eric Terry-Haag 7th, where he is in the championship. William Fenson's down in 8th. A good improvement from him at the end. Got him ahead of Andrew Trickett and, importantly, his nearest championship rival, Jeff Kofod, who rounds out the top 10. Nicholas Johnson and Felix Feliz are sharing row 6 with 13th place, currently being occupied by Dale Pedersen. It is Constant Quint alongside him with Matt Scherf and Park Hilliard next. Jake Stepney 17th, ahead of Thomas Rep, who is third in the AM behind Carson Quint, who's second, up in 14th. Then you get some more AMs here with David Morse and Joel Peguero. Robert Jeffries, 21st, Sully Sad a bit far down in 22nd, ahead of Pete Measure and also Alex Wright. 25th place is Regan Chandler, ahead of Ryan Chandler. How poetic is that? Colin McKenzie and Glue Christian share row 14, ahead of Gino Vella and Ian Cabana, who round out the top 30. Jack Pekanselos and Wardo Warden are next with Sam Smeltzer and Kevin Bergqvist. Smeltzer couldn't improve his position despite that improvement in lap time at the very end. Scott Jeffries and Jeff Lubitsch round out an all Porsche row 18. Ryan Luna's next ahead of Barry Cochrane with Mark Bray, Klaus Rosser and Marshall Hurtado, the final T1 drivers who set a time in that session. I believe those one didn't set a time, but I don't know who it is, and we'll get to that when we get the grid. But while we're waiting for that, we'll have a look at the pole set, of course. The earlier part of this session, the very late part of this session, I should say, by Tyler Graff. It was an early time, very early on, that took the provisional pole for some time until Tyler Graff did this, and this is how it looked from the onboard of the McLaren. You can see a lot of what you were talking about in the qualifying session here, David, getting close to these walls, maximising as much as possible on the small space you have around this circuit.
Yeah, and what we have seen is on the exit, a few of the McLaren drivers getting a little bit of oversteer, needing to use the steering wheel to correct, but I'm not seeing that so far from this lap from Tyler Graff. What I am seeing is just a nice little pocket of space in front of him, not really, hoping for a toe, just hoping to set a clean lap. Still a little bit of correction there where he left himself some space to the wall, but the earlier chicanes looked very good. Underneath the bridge right here, trying to straighten up your braking. How much curb does he fancy? A lot there, and a lot there as well.
Yeah, I get the feeling, we saw his final chicane already, but we'll see it again here. Time was maybe left on the table here from Tyler Graff. I reckon if he was to go out and be given another 20 minutes, he could probably go quicker, but that's the beauty of a qualifying session with limited time. Normally, actually, at circuits, you would find drivers of this standard getting to their peak, if you like, getting quite close to their practice best. You can almost never replicate a personal best in an actual race session, or it's very difficult to anyway, but you'd want to get close, and these drivers of this standard normally can, but I do get the feeling he could have done a little bit better here. There he goes over the curves. That's a bit further over the curves than I remember. Maybe I'm talking rubbish. Out over the line for him, and that is how he set the pole position and the pole lap, the fastest lap in this one. Further behind, Ross Sortino set a very good lap in the AMS. Noticeably more traffic to start this lap off, David, but I think the most important was Carson Quint, who we're seeing here. He's up there now anyway, so we'll have a look at him. But noticeably more traffic for this, that's for sure.
Yep, certainly. You got just a little bit more traffic in front. I'm seeing so many McLarens around here and competitive here at Montreal.
This is out of turns 6 and 7. I think I'm just going to backtrack on something I said earlier. I said Ross Sortino's on pole in. That's not correct. I can't seem to find him in the AM standings, even though he's showing up as that on a. He is showing up as an AM in the PRL's table. So anyway,
there's an inconsistency between what he's named as, which is Pro, and what he's coloured as, which is AM.
Yes, and he's named. I believe that's him naming himself, but he's not named how he is in the PRL. It's put in by the league admin. I think they've slightly done that in error because he is in the Pro. He is in the AM spreadsheet, but he's been inputted as a Pro into our system, which is not in terms of colour, but in terms of our thoughts anyway. And on the timing screen, if you're following along, you can see the link in the chat. He's got a P name which suggests Pro, but he's not. He is an AM, so don't worry about that. He's actually quite far down in the AM standings. He's only been at 3 rounds so far, which plays a part in that, and he hasn't quite strung a race together yet either. But anyway, there's the end of course. Going to have quite some work to do if he wants to get up anywhere near Ross Sortino in this race. Someone asking in YouTube chat, by the way, how you enter this race. Well, this league race is obviously not one to be entered now. It's about start. However, I don't know if there are any Fixed Series slots available. But if you visit precisionracingleague.com, you will be able to, it's literally the first thing you'll see if you go into the forum. You will be able to see if there are any sign-ups available for any of the seasons that are still running in the PRL here in season 4 of 2024. Plenty of racing to be had, of course. I'm not entirely sure. I can't promise you that you'll be able to enter, but I can direct you to where to go so you can find out at the end of the day. So there you go. Anyway, the drivers are up on the circuit right now and getting ready for a pretty big start. At the 35 minutes, they'll think this is a real big opportunity on the start here to really gain some early positions. I need to get on with this very quickly, or whether they'll have their street racing head on and think, better not cause any trouble on this opening lap.
Absolutely gorgeous racetrack. A lot of water about. It's a bit more river running rapids than that makes it look just a little too calm. But the rowing lake is calm, and that's what's behind the pit lane.
It's a bizarre location, isn't it? This racetrack, as you said earlier, we're sort of in the middle of a river here, entirely. You can probably correct me if I'm wrong here. To my understanding, David, an entirely artificial island that was built. Is that true, or am I talking rubbish there?
I think it's been modified, and then the modifications for the St. Lawrence Seaway to create effectively a canal channel up the river. Also reshaped the island on what I think is its southern side, and then I think there was like rocks and islands and whatever in the middle of the river, and man has significantly modified the shape to allow very big ships up.
Okay, and rather large cars as well on its racetrack. So there you go. It is a spectacular location, and great to have it in iRacing as well. Because the thing I miss about this circuit in real life is not seeing quite as much other category racing other than Formula 1 as I'd quite like. So it's great to have it on the service, and has been for a while. And it's good to be here in the PRL for this round of the championship as well. Pole goes Tyler Graff, who's leading the field on his way towards the start of this race. Tyler Graff has been on pole position on a couple of occasions in the PRL, and he's also won on a couple of occasions as well. I wonder if he can add to both of those tallies instead of just the one here tonight. The green flag waves in Montreal, and immediately Tyler Graff gets us underway. Osborne right in behind him in towards turn number 1, and moving to the outside in his Ferrari on the first braking zone of the lap. Graff holds on though ahead of Brett Furman, and then David Bussaford with Ross Sortino on the run up the hill here. They'll tuck into line. Sortino gets, by the looks of things, of David Bussaford, and he is already up into 4th place now for the AM leader.
It's a really tidy start overall, though. I was expecting a bigger one than that. Particularly, you saw how the whole field got checked up on that formation lap through the final chicane, but then sweeping down into 1-2, everything much tidier. You see a car wide out there, and of course, I have to go and say it.
Involved Braid, Lou Christianic, Dino Van involved, Regan Chandler and Jeff Lubitz, I think, decided to stay in. Marshall Hurtado as well, as far as my timing screen is indicating to me anyway. So they are in the race, but they have been delayed, of course. 41 have started the race, so everyone who set a qualifying lap gets onto the grid and it gets underway. And for the leaders, actually, it was a calm start. However, a few at the back have been delayed. As you said, though, David, not quite as bad as some was envisaged at the start.
There's still plenty of time, though. This is their first time through the final chicane. Seeing who hops a lot of curb, who stays off that second one. I always think maybe stay off that second one. Keep the car flat on the ground. Have a bit more control. Get to throttle earlier. It's the first part of the chicane. You want to fly as much as possible to sort of open up the angle somewhat. But everyone seems to be eager to take a bit of a bite from both. What you don't want to do is completely miss, overshoot, and cut that chicane. The slowdown penalty here is very vicious for that.
That certainly is something to watch out for here at Montreal. Oh, and a big crash. Tyler Graff, the leader of the race, has crashed, and we've got a huge pile-up We've got an absolutely huge pile-up at turn 3 and 4. Tyler Graf skips back to pit lane. Thankfully, just in time for those outside the top 10 to come through. But it's taken out the AM leader. It's taken out the Pro leader. And we've got carnage on the streets of Montreal.
If you want to find some damaged parts to a Porsche GT3, now's your chance. Two SRTE cars, I think, involved in that there.
And look who's in second all of a sudden. William Fenson has moved all the way up, getting through the carnage. Jeff Cofford has as well, but I'm afraid their closest championship rivals have been fallen by the wayside in that one, I'm afraid. Tyler Graf way down the field, so's Brett Furman. This is how it happened. Tyler Graf slides, Furman straight into the side of him. Sortino spun around in the Ferrari. A lot of damage, I think, to Fenson actually there. I'm not sure whether that has sort of fixed itself on the way out of this incident, but my goodness me, if there's ever one driver you don't want to see have issues early on in the race at Montreal, it is the leader, because everyone will be delayed by it, and nearly everyone was there.
So what was even the mistake that led to that? Did he just get too much of the first part of the curb? We were talking about McLaren drivers needing to use some steering correction on the exit out of these chicanes, and on the just in the middle of the corner, it drops away from him, and then the rest of them, well, it's almost blind on your way in trying to drive through the carnage. This
is what Carson Quintz saw. By then, it had mostly filtered through, but good avoiding driving from there. Actually saw that happening ahead and did what not a lot of sim racers do, which is brake, and that turned out to be quite a good idea, as it turned out. Meanwhile, Israel Osborne is leading by some way, but I'm not sure he's got out of this unscathed. He was nearly 4 seconds in the lead as that incident happened. It was only a lap ago. Now all of a sudden he's 3 seconds ahead. I don't see any damage actually, but I find it hard to believe he's avoided any.
Sometimes you get this thing where the car in sort of second or third behind the incident get through cleanly, and it's fourth and fifth behind that get into it because you're following the racing line. The car in front of you spins out. They're off the racing line. You can manage to get through before they spin back into a dangerous position. So this is the perspective. See, that was mainly okay for himself, I reckon.
But I've seen less do more the damage, as we see. That's not Tyler Graf. That is the boat off the road down there. There he is, SGE Pioneer car. Not sure why he's letting everyone through and being so nice. I don't know. Bit early for a Thanksgiving present, I suppose. But there you go. He doesn't want to everybody there for whatever reason down at the hairpin. So anyway, well, the gap at the front, 2 seconds now. It's coming down. That's why. Didn't see the first part of that story. And in the end, we've gotten away with one there, I would suggest.
I think that was actually very clever. I've seen stupider things. That was like, oh, I know I'm way in too hot. It's gone and cut the hairpin and gone to join the recovery vehicles parked out there. And then, of course, it takes a little bit to get it turned around and to get it going again.
I did that once in the PRL, would you believe it? Not
yes,
here,
I would.
but yeah, that's true. Well played. But turn 1 at VIR, I was multiple laps down after already crashing. Decided to come out again for the final 15 minutes or so just to practice VIR, to be honest. I'm not very good at it, and nearly destroyed someone's life in towards turn number 1. But anyway, avoided them in the very same way. Meanwhile, battle for second in AM is very much on here. Dale Pedersen is really under pressure from Thomas Rep, who's trying to get away from Joe Pagaro at the moment. That was very aggressive from Rep on a pro driver, of course. Dale Pedersen, who would really rather not, I should say, be a part of this battle at the moment.
And then when you're off line heading into this braking zone for the final chicane, it's tighter than some of the other ones. It's very much one way through, and like I say, if you cut across that yellow curb there, if you go through the runoff and cut the final chicane, you will drop a whole heap of time, because if you gain half a tenth, it asks you to give up 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, it is severe around there, as Thomas Rett consolidates 11th place in this race now. Dale Pedersen in 12th, then Joel Pagaro, who very much like to get through so he can go and chase down the Corvette. We've very much landed in McLaren land here, by the way. From Carson Quint, the AB leader, right the way back. We've got loads of them. And here's one. Oh, Jay Steffi. Friendly fire for McLaren's, I'm afraid, as Jay Steffi does a bump and run there. He's slightly on the racing line. He'll reverse out of that now. But that was a quite aggressive move that was pretty low percentage for the first 10 minutes of the race.
Well, they seem like a pretty quick car. You're talking about how many McLarens we've got up front. They really qualified well, everyone who's in that McLaren, including the pole sitter. But now we're seeing on occasion that they're difficult to race in these battles side by side. You get more curb than you're expecting, you get the curb wrong, and they really do seem to bounce. So that's what we've seen again, just diving down the inside, needing to take a lot more apex curb, and the McLaren's gone and bitten one of its competitors.
Speaking of McLaren's, Dale Pedersen's off as well. That was close, as he's now stuck in a position of not being able to go forwards or backwards because people are going either side of him. Now finally he can go, probably. There we go. He'll get himself back going again. Needs to be careful he doesn't start driving the wrong way at that hairpin, but goodness me, we've seen some early drama here. This is now a group headed by David Morse, followed by Pete Meggier, Robert Jeffries, John Pagaro and Alex Wright, or it was before Wright came into pit lane at the moment. So it's 26 and a half minutes to go. That is quite an early stop, considering we've got less than 10 minutes complete of this race, but it is a fight for the final spot on the podium, and David Morse now holds that position after the incident down into the hairpin a few moments ago.
It's always going to be tough in a quick sprint race like this. You're battling hard, close quarters with your competitors, but a street circuit makes it even more difficult, and then you've got those curbs that the fastest way is to take a little bit of them, but sometimes you get placed where you have to take a lot of them.
Oh, this is awkward. Oh, and he couldn't see him coming. Andrew Trickett there wouldn't have been able to know where Jeff Coulthard was. He got straight into the rear of the Ferrari that already looks like it's limping. I don't think Coulthard's very comfortable around this circuit, to be honest with you. But he's holding, for all he's worth, onto fourth place, and he's got it again. He stays ahead of Andrew Trickett. Felix Feliz closes in behind as well. This is interesting and important. Don't forget, for Jeff Coulthard, the championship protagonist closest to William Fenton at the moment, losing points here at Montreal, and if he were to lose these couple of places, it would be even more points lost as we go on board with Felix Feliz at the moment, and in a slightly strange manner, but we're back again, and he watches on as Andrew Trickett tries to get through on Jeff Coulthard. It's not going to happen, but the pressure now on the man second in the championship is really, really fierce, and he's making mistakes in towards turn one as well.
Well, there we go. Just great racing. This is what we expect, and not really seeing many pit stops from anyone without damage at this point. So it's something that then still got to think of later on. Broadly speaking, for a street circuit, this is a relatively high fuel consumption street circuit. You get to full throttle, then you go to a big braking zone, then you bounce across some curbs, then you get back to full throttle. Not really any long sections, you know, lifting in long sweeping sections where you're at part throttle. It's just a relatively high fuel consumption racetrack.
This is Jay Steffi's attempt at a move in towards turn 6 from a lap ago. Created quite the smoke screen for everyone else who was able to avoid in the end, thankfully, and it was quite a train of drivers who were right behind him, so just as well that they did. That's all that's gone on last lap. Felix Feliz has got a slow down while we were busy looking at that, I would presume anyway, because he's dropped a couple of seconds behind in the Corvette. There he is, just ahead of the AM leading McLaren, Carson Quint, who's now ahead of Ross Sortino, who's back out on the circuit, by the way, but was caught up in that opening lap incident. And to answer your question, David, as to how on earth that happened, Tyler Graff in YouTube chat saying the car just bounced on him in towards turn 3 and 4. And I'm surprised by that at that corner. I mean, it's not quite got the fierce curves of some of the other chicanes on this track, put it that way.
Thank you for paraphrasing, not verbatim quoting Tyler Graff on what the car did for him.
Be banned.
Yeah, it's a bit wide, got to cut the chicane. See, that one I think you give up a bit of time, but it's not going to sting you as badly. The interest that you've got to pay on the loan you've taken out, it seems like it's worse at the final chicane here if you cut that.
Yep. Quite steep, the interest on it, that's for sure. Israel Osborne continues to lead. Initially, after getting in the lead, I was worried he had damage because of that little bit of contact he had with Tyler Graff. but mainly because he was losing so much time to William Fenson, but he seems to have settled in nicely here. And with over 10 minutes gone now, over 12 or 13 minutes gone now, Israel Osborne still holds 3 seconds over William Fenson, and it's important for him to start gaining ground here, Osborne, and maybe this is the sign of him putting a bit of a run together. Don't forget, he took his first win of the season last week. He said that had been a long time coming, even though by other people's standards, he hadn't been out of victory lane for very long. He was still able to get that win last week, though, and if he could string 2 in a row together here, that would be a big statement, I think, heading into the final 3 rounds after our break.
Down at the hairpin, or did you get the French pronunciation earlier?
I didn't do it.
Okay, I don't know. All I know is that Zolder has a Haarspelbocht, which means hairpin turn.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's Dutch though. I can't speak Dutch.
What's Spanish for hairpin? I've no idea.
I literally have no clue as well. I didn't have a clue what the French was until it translated it for me on the track map I've got in front of me. So that's helped me out greatly.
The problem with French is you don't know if 4 letters are going to be pronounced as 8 letters or if 20 letters are going to be pronounced as 3.
It's generally the smaller number, but if you want to hedge your bets, but you can get it wrong.
Like you can get that corner wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicholas Johnson, he's been in the wall here clearly. As he is damaged on the left-hand side, is he just letting those go, or is he severely damaged here? That doesn't look too smart at the moment, that Porsche, I'm afraid. The front left tyre can be visible from more angles than it should be, I'm afraid. Let's see how it happened as he flew into turns 3 and 4. Got towards the outside and smacked the front left on the wall there. That's a hard hit.
That is a little bit of pinball from one wall to the other. So even if he finds that there's not too much damage, it's dropped a lot of positions.
Well, we've got a bit of a holding pattern, by the way, in this race. I'll let the pictures speak for themselves for a moment. Well, we speak to Tyler Graff, who's waiting for an interview at the moment. Of course, at the heart of that second lap incident earlier on in the day. Tyler, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and thanks for speaking to us in such circumstances as well. Just tell us, first of all, maybe not quite in the words you used in YouTube chats, but maybe used as different words. But tell us about what happened there on that second lap.
I don't know. I really don't know. I had been hitting those curbs the same all week, and the car just landed and it bounced weird. And when that right rear goes there, I mean, I was already committed, turned in, so it just went. I mainly just hopped on just to apologize to everybody that got taken out in that. There were a lot of fast guys that also took a lot of times out of their week to come do this. So I just apologize for being the guy that took him out this week.
It can happen to anyone for sure. I mean, how disappointed are you for on a personal level? Maybe well, we'll speak about your personal level maybe as much, but how disappointed are you that you speed to be up front? Got off to a solid start, leading early on. How disappointed are you to be out the race so early?
Yeah, I'm annoyed. I was in a good position for the championship if I could have held that spot. It's still pretty close. I think with this now being a drop, it'll still be decently close, but I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, that was my chance at it, because those other 2 guys seem to have the edge on me at these other tracks. So there's certain tracks where I know I can find a little something, and this was one of them, and I blew it. So.
Well, just maybe it make you feel better, I don't know. The maximum I think you'll be behind will be 25 at the end of the day, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's not too bad. That makes me feel a little better, actually. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you go. 48 points, of course, you drop round. That means effectively you'll score 48 points. The maximum anyone can score now is 56, I think, based on my maths. So, sorry, no, +8, so 26. But anyway, nearest makes no difference. Tyler, thanks very much for coming to chat to us in these circumstances. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you not next week, but the week after.
Yep, we'll see you guys then.
Thanks very much, Tyler Graff there in the booth. Appreciate him talking to us in such circumstances. Just under the halfway, but as we were chatting to him there, pit stops have started Pugaro and Regan Chandler have decided the earliest opportunities to come in.
Yep, so you're seeing pit stops again in the sort of 10 to 11 seconds range of putting a little bit of fuel in. So Joel Pugaro, 11 seconds. Harry Cochran, I think 11. A little bit longer for Regan Chandler at sort of 12, but that's around what we're expecting to see. You've got to talk always here about the pit entry. It is a little unusual if you're in traffic behind someone and you want to go for pit entry. It's going to cost you time, or you're going to risk causing a really big accident when you go to the inside of them. Don't brake and then try to shoot back across to that pit entry.
And we already saw quite a hairy moment there as we were chatting to Tyler. It was quite scary, but there you go. That's the peril of this pit lane entry. I feel like it can reduce the opportunity for an undercut round here, because if, as you say, there's a driver right ahead of you, you can struggle to enter at full speed like they will be able to when they come in a little bit later. So it does stifle an undercut just a little bit here, but the top four have all got clean runs in at the moment. They can do something maybe with that later on. This, meanwhile, is the battle for 19th place. Now as Ryan Luna and Kevin Berkvist gain a place because of pit stoppers. Now go single file in towards turn 1 and 2 as Kevin Berkvist tries to work his way through here into 19th position. And noticeably, the AM drivers, a lot of the AM drivers, gaining significant points today. Look at how many of them there are in the top 15 as things stand.
It's chaotic, so that's a good time to, even if you don't think you're super quick, to try to be consistent, and that's where it's going to get rewarded on a racetrack like this.
Luke Davis isn't here, by the way, the AM Championship leader, so effectively will only score 8 points from this round. That will in a big opportunity for Buck Hamilton, but he's not here either, so that's bad news for both of them. Hamilton, of course, has already missed a round. That was last week. So Ryan Chandler will now effectively take up the championship lead as things stand, but he's nowhere to be seen in the top 15 at the moment either. Lots of reckoning to do at the end of today in AM as Andrew Trickett decides to come in. This is maybe a play from him to try and get ahead of Jeff Coulthard if he possibly can.
So what you also have here at Montreal is iRacing came around and scanned it when NASCAR were racing here, not when F1 were racing here. So when you look around all the sponsors around the racetrack, that makes sense. But when you look at the pit lane layout, that also makes sense. The pit lane speed goes a little bit further around the exit with some extra walls out there. And that's why your pole sitters, your best qualifiers are all right down that exit end with a bit of extra space.
And of course, it's very much an over-the-wall situation rather than a pit garage situation for the reasons you present there. The last time, of course, NASCAR Circle was here was 12 years ago now. Sadly, I'd quite like to see him come back actually, but there you go.
What, just for the track to get a rescan?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, maybe I'm going to prick up a few ears by saying this, but has the circuit really changed other than the advertising around in the last 12 years?
Yeah.
That's right. That was my kind of reaction as well. As with 14 minutes to go, as Ryan Osborne comes in. Wonder if he'll have any optionals here that he'll take. It doesn't seem to have been holding him back so far. Interesting that Fenton has gone on one further, and the reason it's interesting, I think, is because Israel Osborne hasn't run the tank dry here, which I think does put him at risk of coming out in a bit of traffic here if he's not careful.
Yeah, you also think field spread's been pretty strong here compared to some of the other places. You have that quick pit entry. The pit exit's not too slow. So there's a chance that you find a relatively clean amount of track. Heaps of other cars coming in the pit lane as well that would be his traffic. But on the live pictures, yeah, bottom right, just going to get ahead of that car, I reckon.
Yeah, he does, just about. That's Pete Measure, now second in AM, but that's largely down to, well, not wholly, but quite a lot down to the fact that lots of others have made their stops, and Measure has not. Others who have made stops, by the way, who are... well, they're few and far between, I'm afraid. Andrew Trickett is the close, though, 12 seconds behind Osborne. So that was quite important there. Getting ahead of Pete Measure, I think, was important. This outlap can now be as quick as Israel Osborne wants it to be.
Yeah, that's good news now for trying to not get overcut. 12-second stop is slightly on the higher end of what we've seen. 36 seconds cone to cone through the pit lane. So might have needed just a little bit of extra.
There's Ryan Chandler, who said at the start of the day had a really good chance of taking the AM Championship lead here, but he does need to score enough points to do it. He's still 19 behind Luke Davis, who'll be scoring 8 from this round, effectively, because that's his drop week. So we'll do the maths on that a little bit later on and see where that brings Chandler, as Park Hilliard is right behind. It's always the difficult predicament here, especially for pros who have had issues earlier in the race. Hilliard is quicker than Chandler, if you were to believe the qualifying times. However, made an error earlier on down here at the hairpin, don't forget. And so is currently trying to resolve that. And Chandler not really wanting to let him through because, of course, Chandler is gaining points as a result of that. Hilliard will need to look for a way through as Israel Osborne comes out only just ahead of William Fenton. Rejoin Fenton 2 seconds quicker than Osborne was, but only quicker than the next quickest, and actually was not even the quickest in the field as a whole. He was 3 tenths quicker than anyone else in Pro, but David Morse down in AM was quicker than Fenton, so I'm not particularly concerned about him making it on fuel. Instead, wondering why Osborne took 2 seconds longer.
Well, I think maybe it's just Osborne didn't need to take as much risk. He did have that little bit of a lead. Sure, he's gone and used up all of it when you look at the pit stop times on the left-hand side of screen there. So I think Osborne didn't need to take the risk. Fenton did. And with that, it's brought them here, but Fenton might still need just a tiny bit of saving, or I don't think Osborne is gonna much need that.
Well, we'll see now in these last 10 minutes whether he'll regret doing that, if that's what he has done, or whether it will turn out to be an inspired call. I think that the key here is that Osborne has still got the track position, and I think the driver with track position will always be the favourite here, even with a championship leader and serial race winner in the form of William Fenton right behind you. 2 race wins, of course, so far this season. That is more than anybody else in the first 5 rounds, and there he is getting closer again. This is going to feel like a long 10 minutes for Israel Osborne.
Fenton does need to be very careful here, though, because when you're right up behind that other car, easy to be just a little bit offline, get a little bit too much of the curb in any of those places that we've seen can be very, very costly when you get them wrong.
And we've seen a McLaren at turn 2 and 3 getting it very wrong as well in the past in this race. So let's see how Fenton gets on here. As things stand, Israel Osborne will be making those strides in the... he will be gaining 2 points on the day. Fenton, that will bring his gap down to 12 and move him up to second in the championship, I think, just ahead of Kofod, although it would be very close between the two of them. I think it would move him ahead. And Telegraph wouldn't be that far away either in 4th. It's still probably a 4-horse race, but Fenton very much holding the cards as things stand and still 3 rounds to go. But it is a close championship, as it is in AM as well, made even closer by the fact that the top 2 are going to be scoring so little points in AM today. Carson Quint is currently holding that race lead, although only 2.5 seconds behind him is Thomas Rep, who is 4th in the championship, by the way, 19 points behind Ryan Chandler, who will surely be the new leader. And so there's something worth thinking about there. Rep 9th in the current race. Ryan Chandler behind him. That means at least 9 points lost today for him, and that's about half his margin. So interesting developments in the AM class as well, as we look at Carson Quint here, making his way out of the final chicane and over the line just ahead of Matt Scherf in 8th place.
Quint taking much less risk with the final chicane curbing than Matt Scherf behind. Doesn't feel like a massive surprise, but that's where Scherf is gaining this time that he's pulled in the last couple of corners. A lot of it was a good run off the final chicane because of how much curb he was confident in taking.
I think he is being maybe overly careful here, Carson Quint, actually. as we go back in the pack. Oh, and contact! Huge contact, and we're in the Wall of Champions for the first time tonight. Mark Bray has found the wall there, I'm afraid, in the Porsche. Made contact alongside, I think that was Dino Vella was there as well. I think Lubis is the one who makes the initial contact, and Bray in some ways is quite unlucky. Ball that just begins there, and he's effectively had a head-on crash at over 100 miles an hour.
Well, of all the ways I was expecting to see a crash in that corner, I don't think that one was it. I really, I'm surprised by that. Don't tell me that's right, Chandler.
It wasn't top on my list, I've got to say. Yeah. Not what you normally see from the Wall of Champions as we evade that corner just for the moment. Israel Osborne to lead. Might still be 5 for him to go here, and it'd be a very long 5 laps as well. As far as he's concerned, Israel Osborne still holding on though from William Fenton, and now he's got to really exercise those overtaking opportunities we were talking up a little bit at the start of the day.
So out of this right-hander is where Fenton got very wide and squirrely earlier. He's more tidy this time around. Trying to gauge where his overtaking opportunity is going to be.
Lubis got on the grass. That's why he swiped into Bray. Not sure whether that will absolve him of all responsibility, though, with the stewards there, the fact that Lubis got on the grass, or whether that won't mean anything in the end. He may well still receive a penalty for that.
Dare not try to say the corner in French. Because I've realised I've looked at it. You reckon?
That's my best effort, anyway. Yep. I don't actually know, but that's my best effort. If someone who does speak, I know there are some French Canadians in the PRL and do race GT3, so if you would like to correct us, you're more than welcome to, in whatever medium you like. Out over the line for these two. Still 4 to go for Israel Osborne. He still hangs on though from William Fenton. I think the impressive thing actually for Osborne so far is that he's not really come under any attack. There's been no side-by-side moment. There's actually been no moment at all where Fenton's looked like getting through.
Yeah, so famous Montrealer Lawrence Stroll wants to pop by and correct us. We'll take the note.
Yeah, certainly. Jeff Lewis, by the way, in Discord, just apologising to Mark Bray there. So he clearly feels some form of responsibility for that one, which has ended Mark Bray's record of the last couple of moments. That was close to the wall again. I've noticed that from Fenton in the last couple of laps. Through turn 8 and 9, he's just been sliding out close to the wall and very nearly finding it. He hasn't quite just yet, but you can tell how hard he is pushing.
So this is the onboard from the McLaren again. Just slightly odd gearing from qualifying. We saw them barely getting into 6th gear. Now we're getting 6th gear a little earlier in the tow here from William Fenton. Then, of course, keeping a close eye on his braking markers all the way in. He holds 3rd, as our pole sitters lap did as well, through that final chicane. Second gear used in a lot of other places.
Yeah, I was going to say, just give you rather low revs actually using 3rd through that final chicane. But maybe the McLaren's got good pickup off low revs. I don't particularly know that about the McLaren actually, but maybe it does. I don't know. Out of the hairpin for the Porsche of Sully Sad, who's done a good job actually of recovery here. Qualified way down compared to where you'd expect. He's made his way past a lot of AMs here, and he's up into 12th place now overall, despite his battle scars you can see on the front right there. Have a little. Oh dear, that was close to the wall there. Out of the final corner for Joel Peguero. This is on board with William Fenton. Traffic sliding, catches it in a way that we saw that Porsche couldn't quite earlier on in the day. But again, proves the point. Fenton is pushing very, very hard for this win at the moment.
So I've got a 2022 GT World Challenge Asia BOP sheet in front of me with the McLaren 720S GT3, and it's got the table of the allowed boost at different revs, and you do get allowed a lot of boost down low. It sort of tapers off past 6,000, 7,000 RPM compared to the Ferrari GT3 in the same time, which had a sort of low boost down low and then more in the middle. So for whatever the drivability they were trying to set up with that sort of curve of allowed boost, does let the McLaren have plenty down low in that configuration.
Keep you in a higher gear through places like that final chicane, because you know you're going to have the power down lower in the rev range than maybe in others. As 2 minutes to go flashes by. What's happened here to Johnson, Nicholas Johnson? Oh dear, he's just scraped the wall. Could have been worse there, but wasn't great nevertheless. We're on the penultimate lap here, by the way, and I get the feeling here William Fenton is beginning to run out of time.
I mean, yeah, you're looking for a mistake here, or you're looking for your rival to need to suddenly save a lot of fuel. But we think the shoe would be on the other foot that way around. That Osborne can probably keep going hard for it, and Fenton might need to be just coasting into a couple of these braking zones a little bit based on his fuel number. Just hasn't found a place that he can massively outbrake, but here's an opportunity, surely.
Really big opportunity now for William Fenton. Osborne cannot afford to let him get to the inside after a terrible exit out of the hairpin. Fenton is going to have his best chance of the race, but will he even be alongside by the time they get to the final chicane? It doesn't look like it quite, as we tick below 1 minute remaining in this race. Osborne enters quite shallow. Fenton will get across the curb a lot nicer, but look at that. Osborne absolutely aces the final chicane. He will beat him on the way towards turn number 1. And now, as they go through the final meters of this race, on the final lap of this race, overtaking opportunities are being put behind them as William Fenton continues to apply the pressure.
So it was traction out of slow, tight corners that was the first real weak spot we've seen out of his rider Osborne in this particular battle here. He's not getting out-braked easily. He looks more stable through some of the corners, but it's getting to power. It seems like he might have had just a little bit of a struggle.
He was half defensive in towards turn 6 there, but Fenton couldn't take advantage of it. It's a tricky traction zone there, by the way, at turn 7. Really goes on for a long time. Even with traction control, you'll be struggling around there. Into the hairpin coming up in a few moments' time. Fenton gives it everything, fires over the curves, but he doesn't quite get the exit that Osborne gets here. Not sure why the starter's already throwing the checkered flag, because they've still got a long way to go here. Osborne down in the hairpin. Gets a good exit this time. It's nothing like that of a lap ago, where he was really in trouble. And Fenton was applying the pressure into the final chicane. Osborne just has to nail these final 2 corners, and he's going to be a race winner for the 2nd week in a row. Here he goes. Just 2 more turns left for his rider Osborne. Hits the braking marker, up over the first curve, up over the second. He's a little bit cautious, but that's okay, because he's a 2-time race winner this season. Back to back for his rider Osborne, the first driver to do it in season 4 of 2024. And Osborne takes a crucial win with just 3 rounds to go in the championship.
You got a car or 2 looking short on fuel there. Andrew Trickett is dropping quickly. And it's a long way to go to the checkered flag from still.
And Quint looks slow too. Quint looks very slow here. And here comes Thomas Rep. Oh, it's going to be a late turnaround here. The AM Championship is going to turn on its head as Thomas Rep goes and wins the race. Out of fuel for Carson Quint. Out of fuel for Andrew Trickett. Is he even going to make it on the podium? Oh, he's just denied. He will finish 3rd. But Pete Medzier gets ahead of him, as well as Sheriff. And there's a big crash on the front straight as they all squabble for places. The BMW, I think, of Park Hilliard is going to cross the line backwards.
Trickett stopped there. He was off the line, and they've managed to like spill themselves over him regardless.
Is that another one running out of fuel there? Number 9, 12. Slow over the line from Marshall Hurtado, although he was already a couple of laps down anyway. Is Trickett going to make it? I don't know if he is, you know.
He's got to press the starter
quite
button.
excruciating. David Morse is the last driver here, by the way, on the lead lap, and he's going to pass him. Hill says, I'll have that position. Surely, oh dear, there's a McLaren here with barely any play pots left. This is the crash. Already a side-by-side battle to the line. They don't see Trickett. Oh, and they go free wide around him. Two of them crash around him, and one crosses the line backwards. Not even that damaged McLaren could afford Trickett a push over the line, and so it looks like he's going to be stuck there forever and retires. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, what a dramatic start and a dramatic end to that one, that's for sure, as Israel Osborne takes his second race victory of the season. Let's see how the full stand look at the end of 35 minutes. Osborne wins by just a quarter of a second ahead of William Fenton. Eric Toy-Hag with quite a quiet day, but finishes on the podium. Jeff Cutford loses a bit more ground to Fenton in the championship by finishing fourth. Felix Feliz finishes fifth. And Thomas Rep steals the AM Championship victory. Well, not the championship victory, so the race victory. And making that championship initiative as well with sixth place. Pete Mesier leads a trio of McLarens over the line with Matt Scherf and Colson Quint. Quint, of course, running out of fuel towards the end there. Sully Sad rounding out the top 10. 11th place. The previous championship leader of the AM series, of course, Joel Pagero and Robert Jeffries, also in AM, finished just behind him. Nicholas Johnson, Wardo Warden, Jay Steffi and Park Gilead were next, as followed by him was Scott Jeffries, Kevin Bergqvist and Ryan Chandler, the top 20. Chandler will be very close now for that championship lead. Indeed, in AM, as we've talked about, Clarence Rosser and Ian Cabana were just behind him, with Daryl Pedersen in amongst those AMs in 23rd. Ryan Luna, Tino Vella and David Morse were the final drivers over the line. Andrew Trickett didn't quite make it, finished one down. Ross Tortino got back out there after that early crash to finish two down with Marcel Hurtado, with Jeff Lubis finishing four down after that late crash of place, as did Mark Bro together. Alex Wright and Sam Smeltzer were both Regan Chandler, Barry Cochran and David Bustaford also retired quite late on, but those who retired earlier include Brett Berman, Jared Keane, Jeff Graff, Tyler Graff, Jake Bacancelos, and also Luke Christian and Andrew Sharp, who all retired very early on in that race, largely and mostly because of that opening lap incident. Let's chat about that and other things to Israel Osborne, who is a race winner for the second week in a row in the... Well, Israel, you were waiting for the winner 1 week ago for ages, and now you've had two in 2 weeks. How are you feeling after that one?
Oh, yeah, that one felt really good, honestly, because this track is a really frustrating one for me, so I was probably expecting a P5. And, yeah, settled in behind Tyler, and I think it was lap 2. He looped it around going through that first chicane, and, yeah, it was just all survival from there.
Speaking of survival, you did survive on the second lap. Tell us a bit more about that, because anyone who would have predicted a incident early on said the leader's going to go off in front of you. I think most bets would have been on you're going to be involved in it since you're so close to him, but how did you manage to avoid him?
Yeah, honestly, I thought my race was over. I was full brake, you know, turning left as hard as I could, and just barely clipped him, and I had no damage on the car, so, yeah. I guess it was a miracle I got out of there.
Well, it was certainly a good bit of fortune for you on that occasion, but congratulations on holding off Fenton for the win, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Israel Osborne there in first place, ahead of William Fenton, who we can also chat to now. William, welcome to have you with us. Let's start with the end of the race first, because that's be most fresh in your mind. Are you frustrated he couldn't quite make that move on the Ferrari in the end?
Yeah, of course. I would have loved to have taken the win, but Zariah just had a pace to me, both in quali and in the race. Didn't make a mistake, gave me no chance. I'll take second.
It does, in the end, extend your championship lead, and mainly, well, not mainly, but partly because you avoided the second lap incident. Let's get your perspective on it as well, as I'm sure we will with everyone, because it was a big defining point in the race. How did you go about avoiding it?
That's one of those situations where it's just luck, isn't it? It looked like Graffy lost it in turn 3, I think it is, and then a few got collected, and I just got lucky enough to snake my way through. sometimes that's racing, isn't it? You just need a little bit of luck.
Not a lot of drivers giving themselves credit for avoiding the crash, but there you go. That's okay. Congratulations on finishing second, William, and extending that championship lead. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks very much, William Fenton, second place tonight in Pro and overall. Eric Tehag was third in Pro and overall as well, and joins us too. Eric, welcome in. Would it be fair to say you had a relatively quiet end to that race, or not? Tell us your assessment of that one.
I was fighting the car at the end. I think I really burned up the tires because that Ferrari behind me after the pit stop was chasing me down pretty quickly, but it seemed to equal out the last couple laps, and I was just happy to end up where I was.
Yeah, one of your better results of the season as well. How likely is it that you can maybe go one or two better this season and maybe take a race win this season, or are you happy aiming for podiums as we close out the season?
I've been so up and down this season. I either finish about dead last or I'm floating somewhere in the top 10. I just don't think this Mustang has many tracks that it is the fastest car like you see with a Ferrari and McLaren. And we also have some really good drivers up at the top end of this field too. It's just hard to keep up with.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on seeing the podium tonight, Eric, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eric Tehag there in the third place. And a bit further behind, but the AM winner, Thomas Rep, now joins us too. Thomas, you must be feeling very, very exhilarated after that race. Tell us about that last lap when you started to realise that maybe you were going to win the race.
Yeah, I thought I was in P3 or something like that for our class, but then I saw, I think, Carson pulling over to the left. I thought he was like celebrating his win, and then I'm like, wait, the finish line's still up ahead. So I was like, oh, maybe it's P2, but yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one.
What does this mean for the rest of the season now? We haven't spoken to you too much about championship situations or anything, but actually with the top two in the championship not here, and Brian Chandler finishing over 10 positions and therefore 10 points behind you this round as well, you actually be quite close to the championship lead at the end of today, bizarrely. How are you feeling about that going into the final 3 rounds?
Yeah, kind of lucked out with those guys being out. It's a kind of a shame, but it's good for me at least. Just gonna have to have some good results, hopefully not crash out or anything crazy like that, but yep, just got to keep consistent.
Absolutely. Congratulations on winning tonight, Thomas, and thanks for chatting to us too.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Thomas Rett there, first in in the N. Well, that's just about going to do it for us here in the Fixed Series. One note before to clean up before we go for the Fixed Series and go towards the Sprint Series. Of course, Nicholas Johnson just letting us know that he had a screen freeze in that crash he just saw a slow motion of, and so that is part of the reason why he ended up in the wall with such an undrivable Porsche in the end of that race. But with that all to the Fixed Series for another week. We'll be back with them, of course, when we get to Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. However, now it's time to focus on the Sprint Series and a very, very wet circuit in Montreal. Only 2% chance at the start of today is that it was going to be dry at the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. Well, at the moment, that doesn't suggest very much, but I can tell you it is pouring with rain and difficult situation for every driver ready to race in the PRL GT3 Fixed Series for round 6 of our championship. Myself, Ian Leary, and David Haynes still with you for 40 more minutes of action, and we just saw quite a lot, David, in the dry. Goodness knows what we're going to see in these kind of conditions.
Yeah, can I say be careful of the curbs, but like even more so now there's water pooled up against them, and when you bounce you might not just slide, you might spin.
Yeah, never mind the curbs. I'm quite worried about the track actually flooding entirely, and we just go in this river that we're situated in the middle of. But there you go. We will be fine. It's going to be very, very entertaining indeed. Let's tell you about the championship situation, because the drop weeks have been applied, of course, and that means Elliot Budzinski is now back to the top after his poor round at Indianapolis has been written off. He's now 2 points ahead of Vincent Trepanier and Simon Terrier, the teammates who have been working so well together in the last couple of weeks. Jaden Conwright, Brzezinski's teammate, is fourth, ahead of Emmett Lindqvist, who has 1 point over David Holland in fifth. Sean Dickinson, another couple of points back, in seventh, with Conor Wagner, Luke Wallace and Jason Allen starting to fall a bit further adrift. Steve Baker is the new leader in the AM standings, although he has been the leader for a little while now. Chris Long and Matthew Brower, though, are a lot closer. Just 4 points separate the top three, with Rich Calais just 2 points ahead of Miles Brown. Rory Kokoni not too far back from him. And then a very close section of these standings from 7th place all the way down to 14th. There's only 11 points separating Chris Stewart right the way down to Dakota Knapp. In between them, Kyle Robertson, Devon Brock and Wesley Price. In the team standings, as things stand, Advanced Motorsports, with their great last 3 weeks, scoring more points than anybody else in the last 3 weeks in a row. They have 28 points over Fieldernet Racing, who are the undeniable favourites, those two, to take the team's title. The battle for third is interesting as well, with Solpac Precision Racing Gold, SCR2 and SRTE Yellow all separated by just 13 points as well. Then nearly 100 back to SCR1. Up from Motorsports, SRTE, Unit Simsport, Drive Trainer Motorsport and SRA, who round out the 10 teams. Top 10 teams anyway. Plenty more below that. But there you go. That's how we stand going into today at Montreal. I get the feeling, especially for those who are looking for a championship today, David, this is very much about survival today. Making sure you stay on the road and collect decent points, even if you don't go and win today. It could gain you a lot if you just stay on the road.
Yeah, and which part's the road again? Is that on the left or the right of picture?
Yeah, I think it's confusing, isn't it?
I think it's on the left. I think it's on the left.
Very confusing to look at from up here in our aerial shots, which are actually still decent, but you know when you can see the rain through camera shots that it is raining very heavily. As I mentioned at the start of the day, 98% chance of rain here in Montreal today. In 2 weeks' time, by the way, there's 82% chance at Watkins Glen. So we've got some real likely rain coming here. In the Fixed Series, there will be no rain this season, but these next couple of rounds for the Sprint Series drivers could be very, very difficult. Checker flag is currently waving in the session. And they have recently improved their lap times, and they are the quickest now in the field, 1 and 2 in their 2 Porsches. I wonder whether that Porsche DNA of being strong in the wet weather will pay dividends for the advanced Motorsports drivers here today.
They're certainly going to hope so. Traction out of slow corners going to be critical in this weather.
How are cars like the Mustang going to fare? Yeah, I do worry about these drivers, especially in cars that have not been released for quite as long, like the Mustang, for example, because surely these guys just don't have as much experience and familiarity with their cars than guys like the Porsche and the BMW drivers will.
A lot of them are going to practice their pit entries and practice how much curb they can take. Now then think about visibility on an opening lap if it's this wet, because you see individual cars, gee, it's a fair amount of spray, and then we're going to have lots and lots of them.
That was a bit of teamwork there between Joshua Spears, which would be slightly bizarre in these conditions. But anyway, let's have a look at the grid now. Ready for 40 minutes of racing in a few moments' time in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. Franz Trapani and Cimenterio start from the front, ahead of Ryan Scowney and Steve Baker. A lot of Porsches up towards the front here. Matthew Prower and Pole Sitter is ahead of David Mendonca on row 3 as well. Then the first non-Porsche is 7/10 behind. Jaden Comright ahead of Kevin Simpson. Eddie Brzezinski just behind his teammate directly, with Emmett Lindqvist in 10th place. Luke Wallace and Ethan Bass round out the top 12 as the best performing drivers from their two manufacturers as well. 13th is David Holland with J.R. Williams alongside. Peter Nodwell and Sean Dickinson make up an all SimCity Racing row 8 ahead of Evan Mackay and Joshua Spears, the top 9. Saw Spears out on the circuit, of course. Nick Ludecki and Devin Brock have qualified behind him. Chris Stewart and Carl Robertson have just missed out on the top 20, with Jason Allen and Miles Brown making up an all Corvette row 12. Chris Long and Peter Moller are next, ahead of Noah Anderson for Motorsports and Richard Saavedra as well. Adam Henwood and Wesley Price rounding out the top 30, and these are the drivers who really didn't set a very representative time at all. Wesley Price in particular, 7.2 behind pole. So it's time to have a look at how these guys have navigated this circuit, David. These will be very interesting onboard laps to watch, starting of course with the overall pole sitter for this race in the Porsche 911 GT3 we suspected would be so strong round here.
What an interesting line breaking into the final chicane it's taken to set this up.
This is the beginning, and take a look at some of these braking lines here. I suspect that one into the final chicane won't be the only one where there's a slightly odd entrance line compared to what you would see in dry weather conditions.
Yeah, again, staying just a tiny bit off the line on the way in, but on the exit, mostly using all of the road. It's not flat out through that right-hander like it would be in dry conditions. It's got to use all of the road and then tight on the way into the next. So really, really searching in some unconventional places to find grip, and it's rewarded him with speed.
Yeah, generally, in these wet weather conditions, you don't want to be using the traditional racing line because the rubber laid down is very slick, and that's why you can see him braking to the right of the racing line on this occasion, or to the left if you're pulling it over to the right, which you rarely are around this circuit, but nevertheless. So watch it. Look at this. So it's almost like he's defending from someone. A bit deep into here as well. Maybe signs that he could have gone a little bit quicker, but I get the feeling that a perfect lap in wet weather conditions is actually almost impossible, to be honest.
Signs that he could have gone a bit quicker. No sign that you or I could have, though.
No, I'm not trying to make those kind of claims. That would be slightly suicidal. This is the run into the final chicane. Monstering over the curves there, though I guess you have to if you're entering so tight. Being the quickest one, but notice how he's actually setting up for another one here. Actually, is slowing down on this occasion because this is the excuse me, this is the very end of the session. We're not going to be able to see the AM lap, by the way, so we'll just continue chatting along about that. But I get the feeling in that session the motto would have been very different to how it would be in a dry weather session, because you've got conditions you need to get used to, if you like. And I have the feeling that in wet weather conditions, it's a better idea to stay out there and continue pounding out laps, even in a 20-minute session, as opposed to in the dry, where you might only do one or two at a time.
Had a very clear and definitive idea for each corner about where he wanted to be putting the car. So it wasn't, I think, so much of a journey into the unknown every single lap. So he had some experience of where braking grip was going to be, where the grip was going to be when you wanted to turn in. So sort of hit that every single lap, but it was much different from the dry line.
Do you think that's going to cause problems in terms of
yes
for this race? Because side by side, sorry, I know I cut out there, didn't I apologise. I was going to continue that thought, but technology didn't let me. Because everyone's taking such strange lines, obviously it's clear that braking on the racing line, especially in these braking zones is not a good idea, and many people are avoiding it. But yeah, I guess that you've already said that is going to have an effect on how much side by side we're going to have. If those opportunities to overtake are going to have to be taken on the slick rubber braking zones, if you like.
Yeah, so then the work that you would often do to try to get to the inside line and outbrake someone in dry conditions to try to make it pass, you're doing the other way around to try to put them on that less preferred line the other way around. So you can still try to set up your rival, try to make them defend in ways that gives you an advantage.
So
that's the casino there. If everyone feels like taking a gamble, I think I'd take mine on the racetrack, and in these conditions, it could be.
That's quite a spectacular casino, I've got to say. There you go. If you want to lose your money, do it in a nice location. So there you go. Into the race session we go, and 40 minutes will be put on the clock for these drivers to try and negotiate. And my mind, as many will be, is casting back to this Fixed Series race, and of course the second lap of that race. Tyler Graff sliding into the wall, getting it wrong slightly over the curves. I don't want to make him feel any worse about it, but it did cause a rather large incident in this one. I mean, is there less likely, in your opinion, to be an incident like that because of the weather conditions and because of the slower speeds, or a heightened one because of the more difficult conditions to actually keep your car on the road?
You know, you can never ever be completely sure of anything, so it's only 99% wet out there. We're leaving a 1% margin of error in case this dries up really, really quickly. The weather radar says a medium amount of rain and very continuous, and that's what we see out there. Field spread was always bigger in wet conditions, so a driver who's within 1 second of the pole lap in the dry might be 2 in the wet. So lap 1, lap 2, look out, be very, very careful. But then there will be more space on the racetrack after that.
Well, for a brief time, but I suspect lap traffic will come into play quite quickly, and that could reduce the space on the racetrack quite significantly as well. We are about 50% down on the field we saw in the Fixed Series, by the way, so not saying that was a bad thing particularly, but I'm just saying the Fixed Series is so huge compared to that. We're looking 50% lighter here at 30 qualifiers, so just bear that in mind when we're thinking about this and traffic. I don't think it will ever be quite as busy as it was at times in the Fixed Series race, but it will still get busy to a degree, I suppose, in these conditions. Everybody weaving round viciously, trying to get some heat into the tyres at these rather slow speeds, heading towards the line. A very important day indeed for anyone looking to finish well in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. The first of maybe 2 wet rounds in a row, starting here at the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Canada, and the 2 teammates coordinating as you'd expect them to. Single file through the final chicane, as they were told not to do, by the way. They hit the gas immediately and they go, and they get a margin as well. The Porsches lead them in, as on the inside Brzezinski looks to break that up in the BMW immediately. He can't quite do that as he's on the inside. He's stuck there rather and has to stay behind it where he is. Take a look from the aerial shot. Does everybody get through cleanly? It looks like it, but it's a single file start between the teammates, which, as I say, was not really permitted in the driver's briefing, I've got to say. People asked whether there would be a single file start. The answer was no. The teammates, though, coordinating their own through that final chicane.
So 6 Porsche 911 GT3Rs in your top 6 until you get to the Gilles-Villeneuve Racing BMWs there that have gone relatively well for themselves. You've got a Corvette, got a McLaren there, but it's not all McLarens up front in these kind of conditions. It feels like it could be Porsche weather. Vincent Trapania and Sabanterio leading the way at the moment. Still, it does not look easy. That's Therio running quite wide.
Very tricky conditions indeed. Brzezinski with a nicer line off of turn 9 there on the way towards the hairpin. Have a look at this, though, as they all fan out into the braking zone. Oh, contact! Someone's got it massively wrong down there. It's the AM leader, I think, of Matthew Brower, who's got it wrong. He was battling with Steve Baker for the lead of this race, and he's got it very, very wrong indeed. He's down to 9th.
Shot all the way through that runoff, and again, it's so difficult to pick your braking marker, your braking line. Look at Terrio taking the regular braking, where we've seen Trepanier take the pole position, braking a little bit closer to the inside through places like that. We are bouncing, throwing these things over the final chicane.
That was very close between Elliot Brzezinski and Matthew Brower, who was immediately looking for places back again. And here he goes on the outside line at turn 1, not the preferred line, unusually. Oh, and he has to back out of it as well. As coming through, Steve Baker is now in this as well. I thought he was ahead of Conright and Brzezinski actually, and he was earlier, but now he's been overtaken by the two BMWs. He's now back right ahead of Matthew Brewer, who made that mistake into the hairpin.
Yeah, so as quickly as the weather can cause a mistake and cost you time, it can make you gain a lot more if you are confident in these conditions. Like talking about that field spread, quick drivers can come back up through the field pretty quickly in wet conditions as well. You can't defend the normal ways. So if you've got a big pace advantage, normally in the wet, you can make a pass. So long as you've got visibility, that's a big thing for everyone, sort of 7th, 8th on back.
It's very scarce. I mean, look at this. Even this one, we're not even on board and we can barely see them here. It's very, very tricky indeed when you are driving one of these cars. That was Luke Wallace, by the way, losing a couple of places, and look how much he can see. If the tail lights were off, I don't think he would be able to see the Mustang at all as they make their way down in towards the hairpin. Now they're braking late, and there's contact between the Mustangs. Oh, David Holland is the one who spun around by Ethan Bass. He posed in front of one of the other Mustangs, I'm afraid. And now Holland gets back going again, but he will be frustrated about that, I'm afraid.
Second place. Trepanier is so confident in these conditions. He's already pulled out 2 seconds. Ontario, who's not pulling out quite so much from Skulny. Jaden Conright looks to have moved ahead of Mendonca. Yeah.
Good start for these BMWs. They clearly don't have the speed of the Porsches, but they're making the absolute best of it. And this, meanwhile, is what happened to Ethan Bass just way too late on the brakes.
Yeah, from a long way back too, and just not able to
Oh,
control his
no!
line.
Championship leader! The championship leader's off! Elliot Brzezinski into the wall! A disaster for him! He's got to be careful doing this. He's in a really awkward place. But he's got to be careful, and he goes back to pit lane. What a big shame that is for him. The championship leader has already had a bad round in Indianapolis. He can't really afford another one, I'm afraid, at the hands of Matthew Brower. There's been contact, and he's gone into the wall.
Luke Wallace is also dropping a little bit. We had a look at what he could see from his McLaren cockpit. The answer, not quite enough. He's dropped behind J.L. Williams and Sean Dickinson. This is Brzezinski.
It's a bit awkward, that, really. I'm not sure where to apportion the blame there.
There's almost an element of Brzezinski goes in too deep, and then because of that, he almost gets hooked on the other car wide of the apex on the initial turn in.
But also, he's being shoulder barged by Brower on the way in too, so I'm not really sure what to say about that. There's a bit of argy-bargy from both sides, I think, there, to be honest. But there you go. Brzezinski's come off considerably worse, and Brewer's now actually the leader. He's passed Steve Baker in the AM lead. So, oh dear, meanwhile, Emmett Lindqvist has got what I can only presume is a slow-down penalty, and as you were saying earlier, it costs you heaps of time.
Yeah, and then things get even more complicated in the wet, because occasionally you get let off the hook a little too easily in the wet, and then other times it sort of overcompensates the other way around. You're like, I didn't gain that much time, but it doesn't want to let you at all.
Meanwhile, this is for 16th between Nick Ludeke and Joshua Spears. Oh, tight and difficult, but Spears gets through. without sending anyone in the wall. And he's up to 16th place. Ludecky looking for a way back through again as they make their way. Oh no! He's broken too late there, Ludecky. I'm not entirely sure how much you could see, but he was in the puddles there. He was never going to stop it. And now he's going to get overtaken by a few more as well.
Well, there's three types of track. There's the rubbered-in racing line, which can be a bit slick. There's off the racing line, which can be a bit grippier. And there's way off the racing line where water's puddled and there's no grip.
Oh, and off goes Nodwell to join him. That's Kevin Simpson, who's hit the wall, I think. There's Peter Nodwell trying to get back going again, and he's not succeeding just for the moment. Now he'll slide around in the wet grass just as everyone clears anyway. J.L. Williams has also had issues down here at the hairpin. He was slow, and now Luke Wallace is on the back of him with Sean Dickinson and Emmett Lindqvist coming through as well here. We're not going to get a three-wide moment into the final chicane, are we? No, I don't think so, and I think many will be thankful for that. In towards the chicane, 2 wide should be good enough as J.L. Williams and Luke Wallace try it. They make it just about as flying into the pit lane goes Sean Dickinson.
I think he says, I've had enough of this. I'm out. Don't think you're going to wear out your wet tyres and really need to go for all 4 new ones in this race. But he just says, I don't want to be a part of any of this. That's where some of the positions he gained for Luke Wallace. So that's, yeah, just not getting stopped and turned in and losing a handful of spots there.
Oh, and 3 wide off the exit as well. Somewhat remarkable, he didn't lose any places initially, but then eventually he did to Luke Wallace, who's now in 8th. There's David Mendonca, final driver inside the top 5. Meanwhile, Francois Trepanier just cannot be caught by anybody. The lines he's taking are actually, I think, quite a lot different to everybody else, but clearly, well, normally when you do that, it is a bad thing, I think, if you're doing something different to everybody else, but on this occasion, he has found something the others simply have not, and he's the quickest man on this track for sure.
Welcome to Quebec. He's just head and shoulders everyone else, even his own teammate. They've been very, very close, the two of them in dry races. Very, very close to up the front as well. But here, Trepanier is just so much more speed in qualifying, so much more speed in this racing.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, this is out of turn number 8 and 9. Car getting back going again. David Holland looks like he's a bit damaged here. Is he only damaged because of Ethan Bass contact earlier on, or is he suffering a separate ailment at the moment as Nick Ludecky tries to make his way through? Oh, he slots back into line again. They'll go single file through the final chicane. Nearly 10 minutes gone. It's been a very entertaining watch so far, I've got to say.
Again, going to be another race that's got 2 hours worth of action in 40 minutes because it's just non-stop. Well, it's non-stop action. It's not no pit stops.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It's an important distinction to make. On board with Ethan Bass, who's closing in on Evan Mackay. We normally see with the door open. Slightly,
noticing that Sean Dickinson's pit stop, he must have had significant damage, not a strategy call.
Right. Okay. I thought it was a tactical call, but it's evidently not. You're right. He's been in there for over a lap now. So a shame for Dickinson as Ethan Bass gets close to Evan Mackay here on the way in towards turn 8 and 9. Oh my goodness, that car seemed to get away from him almost for no reason.
Oh, it's dirt track style racing, isn't it? Back it in, figure it out somewhere in the middle, try to get to power. It's pushing on, but it would have been a bit of a heart-stopping moment.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, that was close. David Holland nearly repeating the error that sent him around at the hairpin by rear-ending Nick Ludecky there. He avoided it, but sorry, not Nick Ludecky, it was Chris Stewart. He nearly rear-ended. He loses a place to Ludecky, though, but he's got a monstrous run because he went so wide. And there's no grass on the gravel on the outside of that hairpin. It's just tarmac that you can get a very nice run off. And here he goes in towards the hairpin. He's on the outside, and they are going to have to figure it out so he doesn't gain the place. But he's on a better line. Can he get an exit? Doesn't quite look like it on this occasion, and so his error does in the end punish him. He does lose that place.
So we haven't yet seen a representative pit stop from anyone.
No. But don't you think it's still too early?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about.
Okay. I mean, we are nearly a third of the way through, and I suppose normally the limitation is fuel because they're so fuel limited in this series. However, I guess in the wet weather conditions, despite what you were saying about fuel consumption on a street circuit, that is all true, that this is quite high for a street circuit in terms of fuel consumption. The amount they'll be off throttle compared to dry conditions in the wet weather, especially around here, has surely got to be saving them some fuel.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm so curious to know how much.
Spin at turn 8 for Joshua Spears. He will rejoin again behind his teammate. A few positions behind his teammate in 22nd. I'm afraid that will... Oh, and a big incident down at the hairpin as Chris Stewart is hit by Nick Ludecki. Oh, he rejoins, but he was in the middle of the road anyway. I suppose he might have moved from there. Might as well move as he creates all sorts of carnage in this group now from 15th place on backwards.
Meanwhile, we are getting a couple of pit stops, which is interesting to me because the visibility, the spray, so tough. Jaden Conwright coming in. And there we go.
I would suggest Chris Stewart might be coming in as well. The speed difference on the way in compared to staying on the road is even more pronounced in the way, actually, as Jaden Conwright does indeed come to a stop here. Now, is this representative for the very first time, or is this a damage stop as well that we've missed somewhere? This will happen, though, to Joshua Spears. Did he do it on his own? Yes, and eventually was helped around the last 90 degrees by Chris Stewart, I think that was.
Caused a bit of a chain reaction in behind there as well.
Oh, Nick Ludecki. He did hit the back of Stewart. And he did actually do himself quite a lot of damage there, by the way. He's been in pit lane for a while. 19.8 seconds in pit lane. That seems a little bit more reasonable as to what we might expect today.
Gee, I'm not quite as convinced as you are. I think more like 10 seconds
a bit long, doesn't it?
Could be the go here in the wet.
We'll have to see how that plays out as Peter Nodwell, Jason Allen, that's one of his teammates, has gone off at turn 9 and 10. Nodwell's, of course, a bit further back after his earlier spin. Allen now at the back of this group because of this most recent one. The corner before the hairpin. Out of the corner he goes and tucks immediately behind one of his fellow McLarens. Now, will he decide to cut his losses here and try and come in because we've got nearly half this race complete, or will we see him stay out there? He's certainly shaping on the left-hand side as if to say, might be coming in it. No, he is going to have to brake with the McLaren up ahead and staying behind through the chicane. This race at the moment just won't quite calm down even 15 minutes in. Meanwhile, it's the battle from Luke Wallace downwards for 7th place. J.R. Williams and Emmett Lindqvist, the two are a bit closer. Towards turn 6 they go. Looking for these positions at the moment. One of the few battles remaining actually in the top 10 now, which is relatively spread out.
Have a look at all of that spray. The rain's still coming down, so the track's not going to ease up at all, coming towards them.
Wallace! Luke Wallace off the road with the onboard camera of doom. Gets back going again. Oh, it's not an easy task to even doing that here. As he gets back on the road and rejoins outside the top 10. It is so difficult in these conditions. Coming up on the back of him now is Carl Robertson, Noah Anderson and Miles Brown. are also fighting on the way in towards the hairpin. Careful! Oh, goodness, these hairpins, or this hairpin, I should say, the one of them, is making me very nervous indeed. And Noah Anderson gets that slightly wrong on the exit. The Mustang's power a bit too much there, and Miles Brown looking to take advantage.
But you drops back in behind.
Not sure what he was flashing the lights at there, really. Now we'll have a good exit, Brown, if he wants it anyway. And no. Oh, he pulls off completely to the left-hand side. Oh, I guess slow down. And that was very aggressive on one of the up-front Mustangs. Here comes Nick Ledecky, I think it is, trying to regain some of his position. Or is that Jaden Comright fresh out the pit lane? It's Jaden Comright who's fresh out the pit lane. And this is exactly the problem I think you were trying to highlight earlier on, David, with an early stop. You end up in stuff like this.
Yeah, almost nothing to do with him, but now it's all to do with him. It's its own little business. So he had that 20-second stop that I still think feels a little on the long side of what would be necessary for the quickest stop.
Do you think the Adam Henwood and stops at about 5 seconds is a bit more reasonable? Because that seems like the other extreme of too short to me.
Yeah, I think that works for me.
Okay. Meanwhile, Luke Wallace regaining one of those places he lost in that spin we saw not so long ago. Down to the hairpin, that's very late on the brakes again from Comright. Oh my goodness! He nearly slammed straight into Miles Brown there. Thankfully missed him, and they can all continue on with their day. But even 20 minutes in, they don't seem to have quite found their range with that braking zone at turn 10. Oh heavens.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, where are we? Canada, I think. Quebec? Any more specific than that? Not sure.
No. Couldn't even tell you which corner's coming up if you were told the racetrack either. It is very, very difficult to see as we're looking at the back of Miles Brown, or trying to. Oh, he comes over in the braking zone! Oh, goodness! Well, it's not something to be done in the dry, and never mind in the wet when you can't really see, and you certainly can't change your line. Jaden Comright, I don't think we'll be very pleased with that at all. And now he's pulled him into an error. Brown has gone off, and Comright will now get the place.
Yeah, breaking too deep into that first chicane, second chicane, depending on how you measure what looks like a chicane.
Also getting through was Noah Anderson's teammate, Joshua Spears. Meanwhile, even Bass has gone off this time at turn 8 and 9. That's proved to be a really difficult chicane in these conditions.
It's got a bit more elevation change than some of the others. That's a tough chicane too.
And that was quite awkward actually. He couldn't really stop himself from sliding across the wet grass back onto the racing line, I think, which was the most dangerous about that. But thankfully no one was around to crash into him.
The grass does seem very slippery in these conditions as well. We've seen drivers off the road try to get going again, and it takes forever to get out of the grass.
A bit like old iRacing standard grass, to be honest, but they've made it not wet all the time.
A new breed of higher traction grass blades.
Yeah, all new for this year.
In his spare time, Barney's a little bit of an agriculturalist. He's in the lab splicing DNA, cooking up new ways.
And he's not tiring his arms out by vigorously waving various flags. As we see Van Stepanier into the hairpin. Even he's not immune to getting it slightly wrong on the braking zone, as Steve Baker has gone for a spin here. This has cost him a chance at the AM lead. He wasn't leading at the time, but now he's 7.5 seconds behind Mafura and only just ahead of Emmett Lindqvist, who's in the Corvette there. You can just see joining him now in a fight for 6th place.
Yeah, so full props to Trapania in this weather, because now 9 seconds ahead of his teammate, who's pulling even further away.
I do think, by the way, he's a local as well. I'm not sure if he's local, but I think he's certainly French-Canadian, and I think he does live not so far away, so this might well be his home circuit, although we'll have to ask him about that a little bit later on, suspecting that he gets onto the podium. As
we can also
see
ask
Steve
him,
Baker in.
Ask him which side of the debate he falls on, pain au chocolat or chocolatine.
Is that a debate? What's that about?
It's 2 different names for the chocolate and pastry snack.
I mean, the second one you just said is so wrong that it can't be.
Oh, well, let's pencil that down and we'll find out.
Okay. Steve Baker, meanwhile, into pit lane. That's from second in AM. We just saw him have his spin, probably twice, to make his way in. Now his pit stop is going to go over 10 here, so I don't know what to believe. Absolutely no idea what to believe. 5 seconds about. Jaden Comright's nearly 20 seconds. And Steve Baker looks like he's gone somewhere. No, he's just a pit lane, actually. Still stopped as Joshua Spears and Chris Long go side by side out the pit lane. Or at the pit lane exit. Anyway, off goes Long. Here will go Jaden Comright through and in. Mark Brown will as well, moving up to 17th place. Comright still stuck in this group.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. You'd expect he'd have more speed. His fastest lap of the race is a 148.3. He's surrounded by drivers. His fastest lap of the race is almost a 150. But it's not that easy.
In towards the inside for Comright. Careful. Stuck up on the inside. Now he'll get the exit, surely. Straighter line. Get on the power earlier. And now fire down the inside and towards the hairpin. If he's given the room here on the way down here. I think Spears was kind of expecting it. Left him half a width down the inside and eventually opens the door for him. Gets it slightly wrong. And through goes Jaden Comright. Oh! Contact! And thank Spears has the presence of mind there to slow down and not continue to tip Comright all the way around.
It's just not that easy, and the early pit stop's proving relatively costly. Miles Brown doesn't know where to go. He probably can't see a damn thing back there with a big BMW, a big Mustang, and a big amount of spray in his way.
Well, one of those things gets out his way now as Joshua Spears comes in, following Devon Brock from the top 15 into pit lane. There's the number 2 of Steve Baker, still in pit lane, so we've still got no idea how long a pit stop should be. Not no idea, so will Devon Brock and Joshua close? He was 7.7 seconds. Brock. Joshua Spears a little bit long, but I think we're looking more like Henwood and Allen's time, I'm sure.
See, this is what I like about racing, is you don't need to know everything. Like right now, I don't know what's a good pit stop time, but we'll figure it out by the time that the end comes along. We'll just wait and see who's made the correct decisions. I think Trapania's made the correct decision, staying out in the lead of the race for the moment.
This is Miles Brown, by the way, going for spin at turn 5 and clips one of the Porsches, loses his front end, and that's done pretty big damage to him. I don't know what he's done. Is that Steve Baker out the pit lane? No, he's still in the pit lane. It must be one of Baker's teammates who he's clipped on the way through, but that's a slide actually at turn 5. I'm surprised we've not seen a bit more of tonight in the wet weather conditions.
I mean, it looked like a tough corner, even on the pole sitters lap. They had to lift a little bit on their way through. When ordinarily it's pretty close to flat out.
Peter Moller, by the way, Steve Baker's teammate, who he clipped on the way through. As we approach 1/3 distance to go in this race now. Round 6 of the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, and Vincent Trapani is still leading, now nearly by 10 seconds. He is in such rich form now in this series. Won 2 out of the last 3. That streak broken by Elliot Budzinski 1 week ago at Interlagos in a great race between the 2 of them, and Simoterio as well. But I get the feeling today has done a big dent to Budzinski's championship charge, as he is still 1 lap down, but he's down in 30th place. Considering he's already had a race outside of the top 20, and that already taking away as a drop week, this is going to be a big game for Trapani and Terrio, who are surely going to be the top 2 in the championship after this one.
So you've got to look other places for action. It's just a supreme performance up front.
This is for 20th. Adam Henwood, one of those drivers who's taken a really short stop, but as he's just ahead of Richard Zavadia, who has not stopped yet in this race. So slightly skewed battle to reality, but they're not too far away from a battle that really is going on at the moment, as we see Noah Anderson, who's Joshua Spears' teammate, making his way in, following in Ethan Bass. So 2 Mustangs making a stop. There's been a very wide pit window here, a very steady stream of drivers coming in, not really doing it together as they often do.
Yeah, and you wonder about some of those early stoppers, because they just really don't seem to have found a whole lot of advantage from giving up track position, which has seemed pretty important in these conditions. We saw exactly how much it cost Jaden Conwright, that he was losing 2 seconds a lap every lap all of that time, and just couldn't get past cars that he was probably quicker than.
This is on board with David Mendonca. As you can see, that driver ahead not for position. Ryan Skelny's had a very quiet race so far, but he's in the podium places. And David Mendonca just on the outside looking in as things stand with just 11 minutes to go. It has quietened up a little bit in terms of battles, although the pace certainly hasn't, as you can see at the top. However, this is a look at what it's like for many in the field now. A bit of free track in front of them. It's not quite as busy, as I mentioned earlier on, as we saw in the series race earlier on tonight, although it's probably a good thing considering the conditions compared to the conditions in the opening race of the evening.
And the new fastest lap of the race comes in for...
Sorry, go on.
New fastest lap of the race for Vincent Trapani there at a 1:47.2. Meanwhile, when we were on board with David Mendonca, he just completed a 1:48.3. So Trapani has really started to push on. He might be looking to pit soon as we approach 10 minutes to go. Definitely not like he's gone and backed off the pace and thought he cannot stop.
Well, it did enter my mind actually coming in that they'll be able to not stop because of the weather and the fuel saving you get from that, but I don't think it's quite going to be like that today, with the amount of fuel that they have that they're not able to take in. As David Mendonca there goes off, let's have a look at a replay at the same corner of someone else going off. It's proved to be the most difficult chicane of them all, I think, turn 8 and 9.
Had a little bit of a donut there, coming back onto the racetrack.
As Vincent Trapani now in, as Jaden Conwright is catching Carl Robertson. That's the battle you just saw briefly. Wonder whether this means they're starting to run out of fuel now at the front of the race. Well, clearly not. Simoterio carries on in the Advanced Motorsports Porsche. Scowney comes in though, and hopefully in this race everybody's going to put enough fuel in, because a staggering amount didn't in that first one.
Yeah, we've seen it a few times. People just don't like putting in quite enough fuel, but that is 7 seconds. 8 for Trapania.
Yeah. 8.6 to be precise. Scowney 7.9, I think. And yeah, there we go. 7.9. He will be third after Mendonca pits. Matthew Brewer 8.2, 7.7 for Linguist. Carl Robertson and Jen Comright about to. Carl Robertson, of course, hasn't pitted yet, so that's a slightly false 7th for him at the moment. But for Comright, this is important. Here comes Gerald Williams on the outside in the BMW. This is a legitimate fight between the two BMWs. And Comright does just about stay ahead, but you get the feeling he's a long way further behind than what he would have been if he didn't make that really early stop.
So Terrio hasn't stopped, Mendonca hasn't stopped, Robertson hasn't stopped, Chris Long hasn't stopped, and Peter Moller hasn't stopped. Everyone else has.
Oh! Carl Robertson. Slightly baffled as to how he's even found the wall there on the right-hand side at turn 6. There's a view, by the way, to who's stopped and who hasn't in the race so far. Terrio will now rectify that from the lead of the race. Looks like it's hearing that Luke Wallace had an incident. This is what happened. Up over at turn 4, and there's the wet grass we were talking about, and a little dent into the barrier.
Somehow we've gone this far and not talked about ice skating.
It's
kind of feels
metaphor.
wrong.
Trying to put off all imagery of the cold at the moment, to be honest with you, but there you go. We'll have to deal with that as Robertson carries on. So 6.5 minutes to go. Robertson's going to get into the last 5 minutes of this race, still having yet to have pitted. Surely he's not going all the way. That would be extraordinary.
I'm not sure it's a winning strategy, but it's a strategy I'm absolutely dying to see someone try.
Well, I think being anybody other than Vincent Trapania is not a winning strategy at the moment. You can employ any strategy you like, but I don't know if he's going to be beaten today. I don't know if he could have been beaten either. When you look back at this race and analyse it as well, I don't think it's going to be a difficult one to figure out quite why he took the victory today. But let's just see him through these final 5 minutes first, as Carl Robertson is starting to show the signs of not having pitted quite yet, looking a little bit ragged. J.R. Williams right in behind. Jen Comright has got away from him, as you'd expect, but now it's Williams' turn to try and figure a way through as quickly as possible.
Now just Robertson and Chris Long that haven't stopped. I've seen a whole lot of Chris Long in this race to gauge if he looks like a driver who's saving big time. He's doing 149s at the moment. Obviously, last lap for Carl Robertson, he lost a little bit with the 150. No one is quite getting into this 147s business that Vincent Trapania can manage. He's got more than half a second on his fastest lap compared to anyone else.
Robertson's in now. Oh, meanwhile, side by side between Luke Wallace and Noah Anderson here, with Joshua Spears right behind them. And the McLaren powers ahead just for the moment. Anderson swaps sides and goes to the more rubbery, less grippy side of the road. Brakes early though. Compromises Wallace. Now will that just give him a better exit here? Anderson, he has got on the power earlier. He's not that close though. He'd have to come from a long way back here as they all pass Robertson. And they're going to be quite close to Chris Long as well. Are they going to be ahead of him though? Here he is on the right hand side. Watch for him. There's some trees. Watch for him on the outside, and there he goes. Chris Long into 13th place. And more importantly, he's on the podium in Am.
I think running long there has given him a bit of clean track as well later in the stint. So I think that's worked out well for him. He's now just ahead of this battle.
Good pun there. Intentional or not.
Nope, that's how I always talk.
Yeah. Noah Anderson and Joshua Spears engaged in a bit of friendly fire into turn 6. That was Spears trying to get ahead of Anderson on that occasion. Interesting that Robertson's one again, but Robertson's pit stop was so long compared to Chris Long. Foxswift is way over double as off goes Robertson, meanwhile, into turn 8.
There is a couple of drivers that have just had too much fun today. So Kyle Robertson, Luke Wallace, Jaden Conwright, just too much fun. And I'd say he's found the grass on the way in there.
Trouble there's no one around him to see him rejoin like that, but there you go. He's back on again. Yeah, you get the feeling, especially in a race like this, if you've been on the broadcast a little bit too much, then you know you've been in a bit too much trouble, to be honest, throughout the day, because it feels like one of those kind of days, a survival day, where you don't really want to be talked about over the course of the evening, and you just want to ghost your way to a nice result. Like Ryan Scowney, for example. We barely said his name, but he's going to finish third here if he holds it on circuit for the last 2 laps. There he is. Not sure, by the way, this is going to be the white flag coming up for Trapani. I think he's going to receive 2 to go here. The time 47.2 last time round from Trapani. Oh, and David Holland's in the wall in a big way.
Missing a whole bunch of panels from that, so it's been in quite heavy on that other side. Rear wing falls off. He gets hit.
Oh, no.
He reverses into the wall. Oh, man, 3 hits. And that's why there's damage on the front, damage on the rear, damage on the quarter.
I think it's 2 to go here for Trapani. In theory, he could slow down and end the race, but I don't think he will.
Not at this stage, he couldn't.
Not a very good idea.
He would have needed to have slowed down 2 laps ago.
Well, he could have, indeed. Brower continues in the lead, by the way, in AM. Ever since issues earlier, he has been holding on to this rather well. Of course, the championship leader, Steve Baker, who started around him, but is now 25th. Pit stop earlier on. Chris Long and Matthew Brower having a better day than he is at the moment, although Baker's worst result is still quite strong by standards, 24th place, so this won't quite be his worst result. It will, though, lose him the lead to Brower, who will just get ahead of Chris Long as well in the race, as David Holland does come in to repair that damage, perhaps unsurprisingly.
And trust me, that Ford parts truck is used to having to dish out spare diffusers and rear wings, rear deck lids even.
Yes, indeed. They've got plenty of them. As Brower gets overtaken by Lindqvist, who... Well, seems that Brower made a mistake there, but anyway. Seconds to go. Trapani does now see the white flag. And it's a lap of honour now for him, really. He has been really getting into his stride in these last 4 weeks of the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. Winning at Indianapolis and Barcelona. And he might be on his way to win here as well. That was a bit of an unforced error from Brower.
Locked up, heading to the corner, and just ran it a bit wide. We've had a couple of onboards before where you're seeing some rear locking, particularly on the downshifts. Kind of thing that doesn't bother you in the dry, but in the wet, if the automated blipping on the downshift isn't quite right, you can lock your rear tyres late into the braking zone.
And there's Long going late into turn 8 as well. Don't forget, these do matter as far as the AM Championship is concerned. You score points as an overall basis. And even losing positions to pros here matters. Devon Brock has just gained one from a pro. He's got past Ethan Bass there for the final spot inside the top 10. And Bass is really slow. Surely he hasn't miscalculated the fuel here. He looked really slow on the straight there.
I reckon he has.
Real saving fuel towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about your leader went for 8.6 seconds of fuel, whereas Mendonca went for 6.1, Bass went for 6.3, and Chris Long only
Wow.
had 5, and he's pitting again.
Yep. Some of these guys need pit stops. Today has been
You know
a
what?
massive miscalculation of fuel numbers, I'm afraid, for many drivers. And it's happened in Sprint Series as well. Mendonca's slow too. There could be a similar story happening here in Am. We'll get back to that in a moment. As Vincent Trapani comes through the final chicane to win for the third time in 4 weeks in the Euro GT3 Sprint Series, and overall takes his 24th win in Precision Racing League history. Advanced Motorsports dominating 1 and 2 again. Meanwhile, Brewer back ahead of, Mendonca is now behind Brewer and Lindqvist, who have both gotten through. Mendonca is going to be coasting to the finish here.
He's short shifting it too, for all that does.
He's spluttering.
Cut the chicane, son. Because the slowdown will clear itself before the checkered flag. Just cut the chicane. Don't hit the brakes between now and the finish line.
Meanwhile, Matthew Brewer's going to win in Am, by the way, just behind Emmett Lindqvist in 4th place. Brewer takes the championship lead with a 5th place finish. Did he blow over the chicane there, Mendonca? I don't think he did. I think he went around it. And so Conright gets through. J.R. Williams gets through. Evan Mackay gets through. He might be okay to hang on to 9th place, Mendonca. He is not quite going to have an Andrew Trickett moment. He is just about going to make it, I think. Oh, he does. Oh, and Ethan Bass, meanwhile, I thought he was slow. He's running out of fuel too. What has gone on today? And he's just Noah Hansen and Joshua Spears. Oh my goodness me. Adam Henwood, excuse me.
It looked like a slow-mo replay until the car's blasted by its speed. Boys aren't making it. I'm sorry, but that's not getting to the checkered flag.
That car
Holland
is, though.
with no rear wing, yeah.
Goodness me. Some strange happenings have gone on today.
I've heard of a largemouth bass, but I haven't heard of a short-fueled one.
There he is. It's quite a sad sight. I think in the rain he would take to this quite nicely, but I'm afraid his maths has let him down here, as it has for 3 of the Mustang drivers. We can't look at our results until these people either get there or tow, so we could be here for a while. Oh dear. They've got limited time to make it anyway, but one of the more bizarre finishes you're ever likely to see in the Precision Racing League tonight, that's for sure. At Montreal, I can't quite get to the bottom of how so many people were running out of fuel tonight, but there we go. Maybe that will come out in the wash over the course of the week.
There are people for whom their nightmare is to be broken down beside of the road on a cold and rainy day.
Mm. Yeah. We're finally ready to have a look at the results then. It is of course, Vincent Trapani who wins by nearly 14 seconds ahead of Sim Ontario. Rice County finishes on the podium in a nice quiet drive. Emmett Lindqvist, the best of the rest in terms of manufacturers. He brings his Corvette to 4th ahead of the Am winner Matthew Brewer. Jen Conrad and J.R. Williams are the first 2 BMWs ahead of Evan Mackay in the McLaren, best of them. Dave Mendonca spluttered over the line ahead of Devon Brock in 10th. 11th went to Luke Wallace ahead of Joshua Spears, who is the only upfront motorsports driver to make it on his own steam. Under his own steam, I should say. Peter Moller finished 13th ahead of David Holland, who brought his pretty battered Mustang to 14th. Kyle Robertson made it to 15th ahead of Chris Long, who will now be second in the Am Championship, I believe. Right, Ethan Bass didn't quite make it at the end, then neither did Noah Anderson or Adam Henwood, as we saw. Jason Allen was 1 lap down, as was many others in this race. In the end, Richard Saveda and Wesley Price were just the 1 down. Miles Brown and Peter Nobwell 2 down. Steve Baker did make it to the line in his worst result of the season so far, unfortunately, in 25th place. Sean Dickinson, Chris Stewart, the teammates finished 5 down each, with Nick Ludecki, Kevin Simpson and Elliot Brzezinski. That's 2 Finland's drivers in the finishing outside of the top, or in the rest of the top 30, with Chase Wilson last. Let's chat first of all to the race winner, Vincent Trapani now joins us. Welcome in, Vincent. Good to have you with us again. And congratulations on the win. You're 3rd in 4 weeks now in this series. Was it the conditions or this circuit that you took to so well?
I don't like the rain. I think it's my first race in the rain in PRL series, and no, I really don't like the rain. But fortunately for me, we got the pace tonight. So thanks to my mate Simon, and then I have to say thanks a lot to Ryan Scully from SCR because he helped me a little bit with the racing line, and yep, he gave me some tricks on the track. So he tells me.
You may not like the rain, but you were very, very good at it in terms of picking different lines to everybody else. And I said this in commentary that normally picking different lines means that you're doing something wrong compared to everyone else, but you actually getting ahead of everybody else by doing something a little bit different. Just what was that learning process like through conditions that you don't really like in the lead up to this race?
I don't know, because me and Simon we use two different setups for the Porsche. And I know Simon was very fast to stay in the racing line into the braking zone, and me he does it work with my setup. So I try other braking lines, other curve lines too. So it helps me very much, and we have played with the brake bias tonight, so that helped us very, very much. So yep, I'm happy with the pace and with the victory P1 and P2 for us. Yep.
Yeah, congratulations on the 1-2 tonight and your 24th win in PRL history. Thanks for coming to chat to us.
Nice. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks very much. Mr. Stefania, the winner tonight for the 24th time in his career. Ryan Scowney is also waiting for us from third in the overall standings. Welcome in, Ryan. Good to have you with us. And I mentioned in the results rundown that you were one of the quietest drivers in the field, in that we'd barely talked about you at all, barely saw you at all. But that's a good thing, because it meant you weren't going off the road like many others in this race. Just how cautiously or not were you taking that one?
The first little bit I wasn't, and then I had a few oopsie daisies, and I decided just to back off and take it easy. I mean, I was pretty good on my pace, so I figured third place was pretty secure. So yeah. I'd never been up this far in PRL, so this is all new to me. I feel like a Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands right now.
Well, congratulations on your first podium of this season, and as you say, your best result by far and away of the season as well. What does this give you now going into the final 6 of the season?
I wouldn't say a lot of momentum, but it gives me a lot of encouragement that, yeah, I can, run with some of these fast guys. To be honest, I got to thank my whole team. They were behind me the entire way. So yeah, I mean, this goes out to SCR, this goes to Martin, to all our sponsors, to my wife, to everybody that supported me with this.
Well, congratulations on finishing on the podium tonight, Ryan, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan Scowdy, their third place tonight in the field. Doesn't look like we've got the... No, we do. Sorry, can't see. Matthew Brower is there waiting for us. And we bring him in now too. Welcome in, Matthew. Good to have you with us as well. And congratulations on, first of all, the top 5 overall, but also the AM win as well. How was that one tonight?
It was something for sure. Montreal in the rain is definitely a tricky track, but at the end of the day, I had a really good race at the start with Steve here. Unfortunately, went bad for him, but yeah, all in all, I had a good race.
What does this set up now for the rest of the season in terms of the AM Championship? Steve Baker finished down in 25th today, which is a huge game for yourself. Chris Long finished a little bit behind you, so you'll overtake him as well. You should be the leader as far as my maths goes into the final 3 rounds. Does this give you the confidence to go on and win this now?
Well, hopefully I'll just keep going for on the same run I've been on for the past 3 races and keep winning and hopefully take that championship.
Absolutely. Not much to stop you if you keep winning, as you say. Congratulations on winning tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Matthew Brower, the winner again in the AMs. And finally, Devon Brock is there waiting for us at second place in the AMs tonight, and top 10 overall too. Welcome in, Devon. Good to have you with us too. How was that one for you? You were in that midfield, I think, for quite what we describe as, lots of battling. You were on the screen a lot in amongst the battles as well. How difficult was it to just survive and stay on the road in that race?
Yeah, it was a little difficult because especially when behind quite a few people and everything like that, it was very hard to kind of push how I wanted to really push and everything, especially with how wet it was, because I knew I could definitely go faster, but it was definitely a little harder because, biggest thing in a rain race, you just need to just keep it on track and just survive for quite a bit, especially, as you get into a lot later part of the race, some people are going to fall off, you're going to see some spins, you're going to see some instants, and definitely had quite a bit of that behind me, in front of me, so just glad I was able to take advantage of that, but also just have good, really good overall pace for minimal practice to be able to get the finish I got.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is your second AM podium now of the season. What is it going to take for you to get back on this podium again and maybe get on the top step of the podium in the final 3?
I think I got to just keep stay consistent, but keep working to try to get everything out of the car, because it's a new car for me, so I think that's been the basis of this season for me. Just trying to learn the car a little bit more and get everything out of the car, whether it's in the rain, whether it's in the dry, and trying to find out where the car's strongest at.
All right, well, congratulations on finishing on the podium tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well. Thanks very much, Devin Brook there in second in the AM standings tonight as well. Well, that's just about going to do it from us here at Montreal. It was a lot of fun, David, I've got to say. The rain for the first time in the Sprint Series certainly provided some action for us here tonight.
Yeah, well, it rained at pause, so it was action aplenty, and it really did favour the Porsche as well, and it was awesome to see both of the series, Fixed and Sprint, with some different conditions, different strategies play out.
Well, don't forget we'll be away in 1 week's time because of the US election, so do bear that in mind. Don't come back expecting another broadcast for us in 1 week's time. However, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back with the Watkins Glen circuit. It won't quite look like that, but it will be Watkins Glen. And it may well be raining for the Sprint Series as well, so not one to be missed in 2 weeks' time. Don't forget, still another couple of nights of racing to come in iRacing TV. Trucks at Martinsville coming up at 9 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. So we'd be glad to have you back again for that. But from myself, Ian Leary, David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box, and Justin Honest behind the cameras, it's goodbye from a very soggy Montreal. We'll see you tomorrow for Trump Truck Series Racing. Goodbye for now.